Today, the Democrats are in full panic. We've been talking a lot about the polls lately, and you know what? You don't really even need to look at the polls much anymore. You can just see who's winning by how each respective campaign is acting, pretty much. And it's clear to me by looking at the way the media is conducting themselves, what they're saying about this, the way Biden is conducting himself, and the types of themes he's hitting on, that it looks like they're very concerned that Trump is doing a lot better than they anticipated, and the polls have narrowed significantly. There is the head of the Trafalgar Group who predicted the 2016 election almost to the number, I believe, if you look back at it. And he has basically said that since the president's July 4th speech from Mount Rushmore, he's gone up and up and up and up. And Trump mentioned that at his rally last night in Latrobe, which, by the way, if you have a chance to check that out, it's, you know, I always love to talk about optics. It's a stunning, stunning optics. Sunset, Air Force One, huge crowd. And it's interesting, I was watching it live on Fox, and he's going on about how thousands and thousands of people wanted to get in, but they couldn't. They're outside waiting. And I joked to who I was watching it with, you know, he always says that. He says that every single time. It doesn't matter if there's people outside or not. Well, I checked my, I think it was Facebook or Twitter, and Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, posted a photo of the overflow. The overflow meaning the people who could not get into the actual rally, and it was humongous. It was a big sprawl of people, thousands and thousands of people, and that shows you the enthusiasm for Trump in Pennsylvania, so it's going to be very close there. But anyway, what I was saying is that you can tell who's leading or who's winning or losing by how each respective campaign is acting, and more importantly, how the media is acting. So how is the media acting this week? Well, we had a story in The Atlantic about, I'm sure you're well familiar with this, about how Trump made disparaging remarks about wounded soldiers. Now, when you first hear that, as someone who supports the president, does that sound like something he would say? I mean, it's not really even on brand. Remember the comment about the shithole countries? When I heard news of that, I didn't really doubt that he said that. It was something I could definitely see him saying, and it's something that I think he would probably, if he weren't in a re-election, I think this happened last year, if he weren't a year away from re-election, he probably would have defended it. He probably would have said, you know, yeah, that's what I said. They're not great countries. Are you disputing that maybe I used the wrong term? Or, but in this case, it's just so against everything he stands for. It doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense if you understand the media and you understand what they're worried about. It's very clear to me that the media concern and the Biden concern is that Trump is coming across as more patriotic as Biden in many ways. It doesn't matter if he served or not. It doesn't matter how long Biden's been in office for. Trump and the Republican Party in general, if you watch the RNC, did a very good job of showing off their patriotism at the RNC, especially on the final night. Fireworks, flags, veterans. And it is clear, and I mentioned too that the Trafalgar Group head, I forget his name, but he was interviewed and he said, look, since July 4th, since that speech that Trump gave, he's been going up and up and up. So they understand that the jingoism and the flags and the patriotism, those things play very well, and they play very well in the parts of the country that they need. It's not about Hispanics anymore because Trump's numbers actually are looking pretty good with Hispanics. It's not necessarily about even African Americans anymore. You know, you think, how could we possibly have shifted narrative so quick? All we've heard is race, 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 race throughout this entire election season. Black Lives Matter. They are starting to realize that's not working anymore. That's not working. The riots are actually a detriment to Biden. They're not convincing anybody that Biden is the right guy. So they're going to shift. And what they're shifting to is they're trying to make Trump look unpatriotic. And if they have to make up the story, they'll make up the story. Now, who knows? I mean, I'm not going to say it's made up and then, 2 days later, actual audio comes out or something. But as I said, you can't imagine him saying something like that I can imagine the vulgarity, but knowing him, part of his whole campaign when he was running was about the vets and taking care of the veterans and taking care of the wounded veterans. His gripe with John McCain was more about McCain himself not supporting Trump than it ever was anything to do with McCain's service in the military. So they're trying to chip away at that. Even John Bolton, they interviewed John Bolton, who has been extremely critical of the president, wrote an entire book about it. You'd think John Bolton was there when this is supposedly had allegedly happened. You'd think that if John Bolton were there, he would have included it. And he himself said, if it had happened, I would have had an entire chapter on this. I wouldn't have left it out. So they know that his patriotism is a strength. This race is really starting to remind me of the 2004 race, where John Kerry was very stiff and kind of, the Democrat base wasn't really all jazzed up for him. He was a flip-flopper, and President Bush, George W. Bush, ran his re-election basically on the mantra that you may not like me, but you know where I stand, and I love this country. That's it. And even though John Kerry had actually served his country and George W. Bush had not, they were able to paint Bush as the pro-America candidate, the patriotic candidate, the candidate who stood behind the troops, and John Kerry as this guy who was a kind of a protester. Even though he served in the military, he came back and was very much against the Vietnam War and this and that. Now, I'm not meaning to say that Bush and Trump are similar in any way politically, but the campaign has sort of the same feel to it, to be honest with you. It's becoming sort of a Americanism versus something else. They know this election is going to be won in the Rust Belt. They know Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and the people who live in these states, they are very patriotic, and they don't like to see the riots going on, and they understand that Black Lives Matter and the Democrat Party, they're kind of entangled, and the rioters are all kind of the same bowl of mashed potatoes there. So they have to change that narrative that Biden equals rioters, Biden equals Black Lives Matter, Biden equals protesters, and you can see them. They are in full panic mode. When they have to bring Biden out to say the rioting and violence is horrible, I mean, what's it been? It's been like 3 months of this going on, and now he comes out and says that? Clearly it's showing up in the polls, just as Don Lemon said. So, and also there's another article that came out about how there are going to be riots in the streets and violence in the streets unless Biden wins in a landslide. So you see the theme here. It's starting to develop into, well, when Trump wins, this will happen. They have another theory. The media is now talking about how Trump could win on election night, but then have to declare he is actually not the winner a month later because all the mail-in ballots will come in. So what they're basically doing is they're preparing you, the public, for a Trump win, and then they're going to try and take it from him via mail-in ballots. Oh, look at all these Democrat votes coming in. We didn't know this would happen. This is an astonishing circumstance here. Wow, I mean, Trump was ahead in the Electoral College, and 2 days later, look at all of these Democrat absentee mail-in ballots. Wow. So get ready for that. Get ready for that. But have you noticed 2 months ago it was about Trump doesn't have a chance. He's lost. The coronavirus, the COVID thing, the pandemic has sunk him. Well, it's not really what they're talking about anymore. Now it's more like, well, if he wins, he might not actually win. If he wins, there's going to be violence. And then this piece in The Atlantic, which is a total hit job. The media is in full panic mode. They have to make things up now. They have to try and discredit him. They have to try and make him look like he hates the country, because they know that his strong point is that no matter what he says, no matter how vulgar he is, no matter how he conducts himself, people know that Trump loves the country. And he loves it with a passion and makes his whole campaign about that. And they know that there are a lot of voters who like that about him. So they're trying to drive a wedge, right? They're trying to drive a wedge. Expect this. Expect this. I think I tweeted, I didn't mention it in the show, but I think I tweeted some time ago that they are going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at him here in the next 2 months. They are going to lie. They are going to slander. They're going to plant stories. They're going to make up stories. They are going to have Chris Wallace try and kneecap him at the debate, and then they'll have the next host try and kneecap him at the second one, and then they'll have another guy to take him out in the third one. And that's what you're going to have to expect. It's going to be a lot tougher. The media climate, the attacks, the bias, the lies, it's going to ramp up, okay? Now, in that tweet that I mentioned, I talked about how the riots would and the chaos in the inner cities would ramp up as well. Here's the thing. I'm going to hold to that prediction. I do think that stuff is going to continue, even when the Democrats are trying to stop it. Because here's the secret. The Democrats cannot control their own voters. The rioters, the Black Lives Matter people, they have no allegiance. Antifa, they don't have allegiance to Joe Biden. Are you kidding me? When Joe Biden comes out and says, please stop the violence, they just ramp it up. They don't care. They don't care. The horse is out of the barn for the Democrats. They supported the riots. They supported the protests. Now they're going to own it. And Trump better make them own it, because that is what has propelled him back to about even here. It's that he is seen as the only thing standing between cities like Kenosha and complete and total violence and destruction. And you knew this was going to start. Look, it's Labor Day. These elections start around Labor Day. And this is just the first by Goldberg, or whatever his name is, the article, the piece in the Atlantic. We've had multiple people who were there say that it didn't happen. Sarah Huckabee Sanders said it didn't happen. And John Bolton said it didn't happen. So we have these never Trumpers, these people who are, as Trump says, disgruntled employees or what have you. And, yeah, they're digging deep. And that's how you can tell who's winning. Or that's how you can tell where the momentum is going, is shifting. If Biden were a shoo-in and Trump were completely finished, like the Fox poll says he is, where he's down 10, 11 points in Arizona, would they be conjuring up all this stuff? Would they be sort of theorizing, maybe there'll be a lot of violence? Oh, unless Biden gets a landslide. So make sure you give Biden the landslide, or else all the violence is going to continue. So all you middle-class white voters in Michigan and Wisconsin who love Trump, the media is basically saying, hey, you guys, you know what? You hate these riots. We know. They're going to continue. They're going to continue unless Biden wins in a landslide. So you better give Biden his landslide. You better take out this president. But the media has really lost a lot of their control. Okay, they still control a lot, and that's the problem. And that's why Trump is, and any Republicans facing that uphill battle. But they've never met someone like this guy, okay? They didn't campaign this hard against George W. Bush. They didn't do stuff like this to Mitt Romney. I mean, it was close because Obama, they really had to protect him. But they will go to any length. Even if he gets reelected, you do know there's going to be more coups, right? There's going to be more Russiagate stuff. There's going to be more Ukraine, more impeachment. It's not going to stop. And that's what happens when you try to take on Washington, try to change it. So we'll see what happens the next little while. By the way, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. I hate asking people to subscribe. I might make a little video to put at the end of each show, like other YouTubers do, where you know, point down here. I think it's down here, actually. Subscribe there. Like this video, comment. I've noticed that when I interact with people in the comments and I ask them to subscribe, most of them do. And I'm trying to build an audience here, trying to build up I was gonna say a movement, but we're not quite there yet. But build up an audience so we can have a lot of fun going into the fall season here. It's about to get very exciting. After Labor Day is when it always does. There's going to be debates. The first debate is set for September 29th with Chris Wallace. So hopefully I can get my streaming operation working by then and we can watch it together. But that's all in the future. Right now I'm just asking you to subscribe. I'm going to thank everybody for subscribing. I think we're getting close to 500. 1,000 is kind of my short-term goal. I think we can get there. I think we can get there pretty quickly. and we'll have lots more content for you. So that's my ask as I close out the show. There'll be lots more going on this week, and I will be here with lots more episodes. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and we will see you soon.